In Episode 1, we saw the departure from the most easterly airport in North America. We crossed the provinces of Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and into New Brunswick. Day 2 took us northwest across New Brunswick, into Quebec, and along the St. Lawrence River to Cornwall, Ontario, where we spent our second night. On Day 3, we flew west across Ontario and northward up the Bruce Peninsula, where we crossed the Canada-US border into Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan. Day 4 found us crossing Upper Michigan and flying southward through Wisconsin, where we passed over Oshkosh at 4,500 feet and landed in Fond du Lac. On our final day before arriving at AirVenture, we departed Fond du Lac for the 10-minute flight to Oshkosh, but found ourselves flying over 58 miles west to join the lineup back to Oshkosh. At Oshkosh, we enjoyed so many sights and sounds before heading back east across 2 states and 6 provinces. Let's pick it up at the show.
Really wide path. What do you call that? Was that a runway or something?
It looks like a taxi. It's called a taxi.
Okay, so we need to get on the yellow train.
Yeah.
But even if we don't, the sun is later time.
Even if you wouldn't get on the tram, you could walk.
In that, which doesn't make sense.
So after staying in the tent at Oshkosh for 3 nights, and we had a little bit of time with Dan Lodge, who flew up from Pennsylvania, and we also spent an evening with Munden and Steve, who...
They weren't too far from us there at the campground?
Yeah, 3 or 4 rows away. It was great. We decided to head back. The weather looked favorable, and we got on the go. Leaving Oshkosh, again, anytime you get your engine run at Oshkosh, it's busy. Put it that way. The only time it's not busy is when it's dark.
Busy means slow.
Yeah.
It was slow going. Yeah.
Probably took us a half hour to taxi from our parking spot, get in line with the row of departing aircraft, and get cleared onto the runway. We took off on the same runway we landed on, which was 36 left, and they actually were setting it up. It's a fairly wide runway. It's probably equivalent to the width of 29 at St. John's, and they set it up so that there was aircraft taking off on the left side of the runway and aircraft taking off on the right side, albeit not exactly at the same time. They were trying to stagger them. So one was taking off and the other one was taking off, and they could get one into position while the previous one was taken off.
I think they pretty much had to stagger at that point, though, because I believe everybody going out on 36 there, they were being told, do a hard right turn, head for the lake.
Right, because you cannot cross over the other runway to the north, which is not an intersecting runway, but it does run 90 degrees to it, and they do not want you to cross over that. And the runway next to you, which is 36 right, there's still incoming traffic landing on that, so you got to make sure you're climbed high enough, so in case someone doesn't overshoot on that, you're not interfering with them. So you take off, immediately climb aggressively, and then as soon as you're able and before you cross runway 27, you have to make a hard right out towards Lake Winnebago. So with that done, we flew south so we didn't have to cross the main body of Lake Winnebago, and I'd say we probably crossed Lake Winnebago probably at a point where it was maybe 5 miles wide.
Yeah, there was a bit of water there, but it wasn't too bad. There was no time at all, and I believe we were going in over the fields and on the other side. Yeah,
we're going over the fields. I always remember looking out and seeing the Arians snowblower and lawnmower plant in Brillion, because you fly almost right over Brillion, and Arians is something I've been involved with for a long time, but it looks like the village mall out in the middle of fields. It's just this weird thing. It doesn't fit with the rest of the surroundings. But in any case, from there we flew on up the peninsula outside of Green Bay, between Green Bay and Lake Michigan.
We were headed to Schoolcraft at this point.
Yeah, it was Schoolcraft Airport, which probably took us a couple of hours, maybe a little bit more than that. It was a fairly long leg. went there. Weather was great once again. Not much wind, and there was a couple of cubs refueling there ahead of us, which were nice to see. They were really well done. Fueled up there, and then our next challenge was entering Canada. So our port of entry was going to be Gore Bay on Manitoulin Island, and we did call and left a message with Canada Customs because nobody would answer the phone. In any case, that didn't seem to matter much because when we got to Gore Bay, there were three
others there who
were
wandering around basically with the phone to their ear for the past 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, so immediately we got on the phone, we got put on hold, and we went through all the trouble of filing our Arrive can, the new thing they came out with for COVID that's no longer in effect, and we had numbers for that, and they didn't even care. It was it was all about the other part of the process, entering through customs, asking us 20 questions over the phone, and finally I think they almost gave up on us and just said, yeah, go on. Nobody came out to see us. It was all done over the phone, and it was just a nuisance. It was a waste of an hour for sure.
Yeah.
But we got out, stretched our legs, gassed up, made the best of it, and it wasn't a bad day, and there were some nice people there to talk to, so that was interesting. We got to go from there.
We went from there down to Waterton, didn't we?
Yeah, flew down again over the Bruce Peninsula, over the end of Manitoulin Island, over Tobermory, over all the small islands that link the two peninsulas together. Even though you're flying from a big island to the peninsula and you're over a lot of water, there's scattered islands the whole way. It doesn't feel like you're over a huge body.
There's a lot of boats there too.
Yeah.
Boats everywhere, yeah. And wasn't there a couple ferries there as well?
There was a couple of ferries,
yeah.
And I always get the feeling when I'm coming home, especially on a motorcycle or on a plane or whatever, it's always more relaxing the closer you get to home, because if something breaks and you have to land somewhere and you got to come get a truck from Newfoundland and go get the plane or the bike, then it's not so far a drive. Closer, every leg is another 3 or 4 hours drive, and you don't have to do so.
That feeling is always there, isn't it, on these longer trips?
But in any case, and I always hate over islands. I said, geez, if we had to put this plane down there and it wasn't beat up, how would I get it home? You know, I'd have to get a boat to get the plane back to the mainland. But in any case, none of that happened. We went to Wyerton. We weren't really planning on Wyerton. We could have gone further. We probably planned on Cornwall or Edenvale or something.
Yeah.
But we looked off in the distance and we could see some nasty looking vertical developments type
It was
stuff.
starting to race it a little bit there.
Yeah, and it looked like it went to the ground, and we called the weather guys, and they said, oh, it's marginal, but you should have no problem. And I said, no, we're not in a hurry. We're going to Doug's tonight, so it's only another hour and a half or so from Wyerton to Doug's. So we put her down again in Wyerton, topped off the fuel. We're probably there maybe an hour.
We were also looking at the fact that we had easily available fuel there.
Yeah.
Once we got to the Doug's, we would have been gas cans, weren't we?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So we figured we'd be better off to fuel up.
As much as possible.
Yeah,
there.
as much as possible. And the other thing was, in the back of my mind, I said, well, if we land at Cornwall and then go to Doug's, I'm taking off from Doug's backyard with almost full tanks of fuel, which it'd be better not to. As it was no issue. But it's a grass strip and it's 2,000 feet long at the most. So we figured if we could have some fuel burned, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. So after a couple hours flying time, we left Wyerton. Weather wasn't too bad. A little bit of low ceiling, but not extremely at all.
It was comfortable,
Yeah.
very comfortable. And we passed by a few other airports there that you were familiar with on the way, and you heard of some training flights that were on the go there.
Yeah. In any case, the next thing we Lake Simcoe came into view. We crossed the top of Lake Simcoe, and from there there's some really distinct points of land that point out into Lake Simcoe from its eastern shore, and one of those is my landmark for Doug's. So we found that, and then we immediately could see Doug's, which he's got a 2,000 foot ditch for land and seaplanes, and he's got 2 intersecting runways at his place. So we did a flyover, probably at 2,000 feet, and then made our radio calls, nobody else in the area, and circled back to land behind Doug's house.
That was a nice landing.
Yeah.
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. He keeps it well maintained, and I always got the feeling when I'm at Doug's, no matter what's broken on the plane, I can go out in this field and get the part off another plane that's there, because there's about
Grows in there.
there's about 100 planes all around Doug's and floats and whatever else, so you feel really good. Then he taxied up to within 100 feet of the house and shut down immediately. His son Andrew came out and greeted us and his wife, and they made us feel right at home. So we moved into the upstairs bedroom there, got ourselves situated, and went on to Wild Wing for the evening. And in the process, went and visited the gentleman who I got my airplane from.
Yeah.
I bought it in a derelict state from him 4 years ago, and Doug actually was the one who did the inspection and stuff on it for me before I bought it, which was pretty easy because it was totally disassembled and I wasn't buying an engine or anything anyway. But yeah, the airplane went back to where I got it, which was pretty neat. I always kind of thought
That was an interesting visit.
yeah, to get back to Doug's one way or another. And in any case,
I think he was very happy to hear that the plane was back in the air, and
yeah, and I was very happy to see him as well.
well, that was a good night that we had there at Doug's, and they put us up well, and we enjoyed a nice breakfast in the morning. So the plane was basically parked just out by the door there, and in no time at all we were loaded up and ready to go again.
Yeah, we didn't refuel at Doug's. We had plenty of fuel left, and next stop was going to be Peterborough, so we get a full tank of gas, which probably was about 40 minutes flying down from Doug's. So we took off, climbed out over the shore of Lake Simcoe, and then made a turn to the northeast, headed directly for Peterborough. Peterborough got into their airspace very active. I think we were number 3 in the circuit. It's an uncontrolled airport, and you just got to fit in there. No problem, though. Got down, got fuel. And that was a very quick stop, if I remember correctly.
It was very quick. I mean, that was early in the morning,
Yeah.
and we really had no reason to hang around.
Yeah. From there we took off, and Ed had mentioned that he wanted to see the Thousand Island area, if we could get close to that. So we proceeded southwards to the bottom end of Lake Ontario. And before we got to where we wanted, someone from Trenton called us up and told us not to go down any further south. They wanted us to stay to the north.
Yeah.
But as it was, we still got a
We
view.
were right on the edge of the lake anyway.
Yeah, we still got a view of the Thousand Islands. And once we were past Trenton, we went closer to the river. Some beautiful scenery. Carried on from there. We had a plan to go back to Cornwall after Peterborough, but we noticed that we were doing really, really well on the GPS on our ground speed.
We had a good tailwind.
You know, there had to be a 25 to 30 knot tailwind even then, which was 9 o'clock in the morning. So we elected to go on past Cornwall and proceed to Trois-Rivières. So went through Montreal airspace, and they vectored us through on the way up. And on the way back, they were much more simple. They just said stay north of Route 40, which basically, if you traced it out on a map, gave us a direct path to follow. And I guess the difference is the guy in the control tower is probably more familiar with VFR aircraft. It's a lot easier to say, just stay north of Route 40 than it is fly this vector, then fly that vector to give you exactly the same result. And if we were flying a 747 in the fog, well, the vectors would probably be better. But for us,
Yeah, we didn't need that.
no. In any case, got closer to Trois-Rivières, entered the descent, and I'm always amazed, and Ed was taken aback a bit by it as well. The communication in Quebec, it seems like it's all done in French, and you got to wonder if they even know what you're saying. You can announce that my thing was, okay, Ed, what are we over? And Ed would look down and say the name of the place, and I'd announce on the radio who we were, what we were over, what altitude we were, and nobody had ever come back. But you can only assume.
You hope that they understand English
Enough.
They're talking all French, but you hope they're understanding English enough to at least be aware where you are, because we didn't know where they were.
Because other than they might say a name of a place. You might pick Trois-Rivières out of what they say, but you don't know if they're leaving or if they're arriving or if they're on the ground or what. But in any case, just a note: if you're in Quebec airspace, just try and keep away from everybody as much as you can.
It can be unnerving, especially in the higher traffic areas.
Yeah. In case we landed at Trois-Rivières, quickly refueled. We had a bite to eat there, and got on the go. We were hoping to get to Miramichi that day. Got to Rivière-du-Loup.
Yep.
And my biggest, Ed was flying at the time. Ed was pilot in command.
We were doing over 45 knots of wind at that time. It was blowing good.
Our ground speed was like 140 knots, I believe, coming down the side of the St. Lawrence. And my distinct memory was when Ed was in the circuit and we were doing a circuit to land in Rivière-du-Loup, was that we were flying the circuit at a 45 because of the 45 degree angle, because we had to head into the wind so much to keep the plane flying a straight line over the ground. In any case, we landed there. It was blowing a gale. And actually, I was afraid the airplane was gonna tip up on a wing while we were fueling it. Another airplane that landed there, I believe, was a 737 jet that was doing a rotation switch for a mine in northern Quebec or Labrador, and nobody else took off or landed. So we tied down for the night there, and that was the end of that day. It was also a nice little airport. The guy found us a hotel, and he also gave us an airport car. Again, something the Newfoundlanders are not very accustomed to. But there's the keys, there's the car. Bring it back tomorrow.
Yeah, that worked out really well for us.
Yeah, so it was a good night.
Yeah. So in Rivière-du-Loup, we ended up with some more bad weather. That was a long wait that morning trying to get out. Yeah, we had the weather, and in fact, there was once we had the plane loaded up, and we started to head out, and the rain came again. End of the runway wasn't looking real good, and we shut her down one more time and waited another while. So
it was another one of those days when the weather guys were saying, it's going to get better, but we're not sure when it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And everything to the west of us was starting to clear up, but they said the stuff that was in our way was going to be a little while more before it drifted on. But we talked about it, and we said after waiting probably 2 hours.
Oh, we were about 2 hours constantly on the iPad and talking to other people there who were getting their weather from their individual sources and so on. And after a couple hours there, we decided, we can scoot out of here. And that's about what we were doing. We were going to scoot out of there.
Yeah, it was probably a 1,600 foot ceiling when we took off, and immediately to the south, which we really wanted to go southeast, but immediately to the south it looked good, and the weather officer told us that to the west, if we had to go into Maine, we should have no problem getting down. And he was right. But everything to as we got going, we wouldn't have been able to leave any earlier and stay in Canadian.
That's right. We basically had to chase the border a little bit there and got over the river.
And we did. We flew pretty much due south down the highway with heavy thunderstorms off to the east. Grand Falls, I believe, was our turning point. Grand Falls, New Brunswick, and we turned and headed east towards Miramichi, and from there on in, straight on into Miramichi. It was a beautiful day.
Yeah, the weather was good at that point, but we had already lost a big part of the day, so our day was going to be shorter flying.
Yeah. So we stayed on the ground in Miramichi long enough to find out that there was no accommodations in Charlottetown, which is the next place we were planning on headed.
That wasn't the normal, though.
No.
There was a fire on the ferry, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe that's what they said.
And there's a lot of people stuck on the island.
Yeah, so no accommodations. Through the airport authority there, who I found great, they gave us the name of the COPA leader for leader of the flight in Charlottetown. And got a hold of him, and he said, yeah, no problem. He said, you can park in front of my hangar, tie your plane down there. pitch your tent there. He said there's washroom facilities there, shower facilities there in their clubhouse, which basically I think is Sea Eagle Aviation. It's a flying school.
Yeah.
But in any case, he said you can stay there, and he said even if it looks like it's going to rain, he said you can just set up your mattresses in your camping gear inside the
lounge in there.
Inside the lounge. So that's what we opted to do, and I rolled out my bedroll, and then Ed slept on the couch there, and it was great. We went and got a pizza, and beautiful evening. Watched the airplanes take off and land in Charlottetown.
Yeah, that was it was nice. I believe, if I recall correctly, we sat back on the deck that evening and watched the sunset.
Yeah, that was a great spot.
That was good, right across the runway there.
Yeah. And we did meet some people from their Casera group there as well. They were over in the hangar when we got there. But the gentleman who we dealt with for the accommodations for the parking, we never did get to meet him. He said he showed up the next morning, but we were gone by that time.
Yeah. We had a long day ahead of us. Yeah. So that was good. That was good. We had a really good flight there, even though it was a shorter day because of the weather that morning up in River de Lou. It turned out to be a good day flying, and it was quite scenic, as it always is up that way. Yeah. We are now in our final day 11. So starting off in Charlottetown. Now Charlottetown, the weather was good there, and we checked ahead because we heard there was some weather down over Cape Breton. Looked like there was a bit of cloud over Cape Breton Island, but it was going to clear within the next hour or two.
Yeah, the quote from the weather guy was, "You'll have no problem getting back to Newfoundland today. There's not going to be much to talk about." So, in any case, got out of Charlottetown, climbed up to a comfortable height to go off the eastern end of Prince Edward Island towards Cape Breton, and by that time we had already made the decision that we weren't going to try to go from Charlottetown directly to Deer Lake, because we could see that the whole island of Cape Breton was covered in a layer
There was a
of
very
cloud.
heavy cloud cover there.
Yeah. So we said, okay, we don't want to get involved in that too much. So we went to Port Hawkesbury, and perfectly clear there, but immediately to the north of it, within 10 miles of the north, there was this big bank of fog over Cape Breton. What was happening was that it was rising and it was thinning out, but from what we were looking at, it still looked kind of ominous.
Well, for us too, we couldn't get just below the cloud base there as we would normally fly. We needed altitude at that point.
Right, we had to be up. I didn't want to cross the Gulf at 1,500 feet. That'd be just not very smart. So in any case, we finally decided, I think the conversation went like, well, let's go and we'll see what it's like, and we can always come back. It's not forecast to close in on Port Hawkesbury. We had about a 2,000-foot ceiling, but we realized that was not going to be any good to us. So we started to climb above the layer, which once we climbed above it, we realized it wasn't a solid layer. It was only a scattered layer we could see down through. And we could see off to the side of it as well. So we were quite comfortable with that. We went up, probably the highest we'd been on the flight, which is probably 8,500 feet.
About 8,500 by the time we left Cape Breton.
Yeah, by the time we got to the tip of Cape Breton, we were above open skies, that there was no clouds below us at all. And we started to cross the Gulf. You could see St. Paul Island immediately before we were even off of the shores of Cape Breton. It was a lot less hazy. And I distinctly remember Ed pointing out the clouds on the other side.
You could see how over Cape Breton Island the cloud cover was fairly thick, but there were holes down through. You could get down almost anywhere. And as we came out over the coast of the Gulf there, it was clear all the way across. But over on the horizon, you could see some heavy cloud cover again. And I pulled up the satellite views on the iPad there on ForeFlight, and I said to Brian, you see that little patch of cloud over there in the distance? I said, head for that. Port aux Basques is right under it. Yeah. Sure enough, it was.
Yeah. And I distinctly remember that. It was just more the same. We were flying over a cloud, and it was nice and smooth up there, but like the cloud was probably 2,000-foot ceiling. We were probably 3,000 feet above it, but you could still see down through it. as we needed to. So, and we got on the radio then with Gander, got some flight following from them, and also Steve and Munn were flying back the same day by a different route, and we could hear them on the radio for the first time since we'd been on the trip. And so that was nice. And at the same time, the wind was, after picking up again, to about a 30 knot tailwind, which was great.
We were cruising pretty good.
Yeah, so we had to come down out of it and go through that layer of cloud, which we spiraled down through that cloud somewhere just to the west of Corner Brook.
Yeah.
Which probably, looking back on it, we should have stayed above it a little bit longer and come down over there, like, because we ended up flying up the valley from.
We went right up the valley. That was a bit bumpy there. We had it right on our side there.
Yeah.
But we didn't know for sure what it was going to be like around Deer Lake, though, at that point.
That's true. That's true. In Deer Lake, we had a quick sandwich there and refueled, and then we might have been there for an hour or so. And
Okay,
then, yeah. Then we took off from there, and the cloud layer was dissipating big time to the east. So I think for the first half hour we might have had some altitude restrictions. We probably had
A little bit.
2,000 feet or so, but then gradually just put in a gentle climb. And I think by the time we were to Bishop's Falls area, we were probably up around 5,000 feet.
This was our final leg, though. This was the final leg of the trip.
Yeah.
And I can remember, we're back over Newfoundland now. So much of this looks like we always see it. And I was starting to find, I was reflecting back then. It was like, what a trip this was, and so on, even though it wasn't over.
Yeah, it was just a comforting feeling to be back and have the Gulf behind you. And again, we had a really high airspeed because of the ground speed because of the tailwind we were.
Yeah, things were happening too fast. I wanted another few days up there.
Yeah. Anyway, I always go to the south edge of the control zone in Gander when I'm coming back, so I'm not too far out in the middle of nowhere. And I distinctly remember Ed pointing out smoke columns up to the south of us, and we reported that to the tower. It was down around Bay d'Espoir, and we saw at least 2 or 3 distinct columns of smoke rise.
Yeah, there was one there, and then we radioed that in, and within 10 minutes we could see a second one had started.
Yeah.
And we radioed that in as well. And that's when they came back and they said, okay, exactly what's your position? And so I think they were sending aircraft down to investigate at that point.
Yeah, and that was about a week prior to the fires that were threatening Bishop's Falls and Badger and those places. On Bull Arm, and I can remember saying, "Ed, is your wife home now in Dildo?" And he said, "Yeah, she's there." I said, "Okay." Well, so we dropped down. We did a circle around.
Around there.
She got a few pictures of us and stuff flying over. Steve and Munn were after getting ahead of us because they never stopped in Deer Lake. So we figured they'd be back at the pond, at Paddy's Pond, so we said we'd fly over there. We had a look down, they waved to us, and they were back safe, which was great. From there, headed on back to St. John's and
On final before we knew it.
landed at the airport for the umpteenth million time, and you know. Yeah,
It was a good trip.
Yeah, and nothing in the way of mechanical trouble other than the flat tire. We burned 1 quart of oil in 48 hours of flying time, which I was happy with that.
Yeah.
And the thing started first try, every try. It was a stellar performing airplane. That's the acid test for sure. Try and do a 50-hour flight without any trouble. I was happy with it.
Yeah. 2022 AirVenture was a good trip. Everything went well, and it was totally enjoyable. Even though we had some challenging weather at times, we took it on. We waited it out when we needed to wait it out, and it was awesome. Couldn't have asked for a better trip.
And if you think back on it, people say, some people say, oh, geez, it's very stressful doing that kind of stuff. The only times I can remember being at all stressed, we're going through the mountains in New Brunswick, and maybe we were in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and had to divert to Loose.
But even then, we knew that highway was just to our left.
Yeah.
In fact, we thought we had found another airport that wasn't on the chart. And
it was an abandoned missile base.
I don't know, what is it abandoned?
Well, it's not used as a missile base
I'm
anymore.
told it's a missile silo.
Yeah, it was some kind of U.S. Air Force thing. It's definitely, I think that someone said it's an auto manufacturer now.
Oh, that's pretty
owns
cool.
it for testing. But it's a big triangular shaped concrete runway complex out in the middle of nowhere. Other than that, really, the only thing that was stressful was being in Quebec airspace and not knowing who's saying what. And
Yeah,
what
that was a bit stressful, yes. Yeah, and frustrating.
But other than that, it was all like people asked what I was like to fly to Oshkosh. I said just fly back and forth to Deer Lake 20 times and you're done. It's the same thing. It's just long cross countries, one after another.
That's like crossing the Gulf. I mean, we all talk about crossing the Gulf and that, and for a lot of people, it's nothing. I believe you did the calculations one day, and it's basically the same thing as taking off in St. John's and flying direct to Bonavista.
Yeah.
That would be about your distance. And,
just pick a good day to do it and do it.
yeah. But that's good. We had a fantastic trip.
Yeah, it was good. It was
Another year.
Good time. Yeah. I'm glad we did it.
Likewise.
Trip of a life.